Hi, I'm Ivy, and I'm here with Mind Your Mind talking to Kendra Fisher, hockey player. So, you're a goalie in the Canadian Women's Hockey League and have achieved some great accomplishments during your career. What inspires you to be a hockey player?
This is one of those embarrassing stories, I think. When I was about 4 years old, I was sitting there watching my brother play hockey, and at the time I was in figure skating, and I looked at my folks and told them when I grew up to be a boy I wanted to play hockey just like my brother, and it kind of stuck. I started playing when I was about 4, and when I was about 6 I started goaltending, and I never looked back, and it's just kind of something that's always brought a lot of happiness and joy to my life, and great competitive spirit, a lot of great people involved, so I've just always stuck with it.
Who would you say your favorite hockey player of all time would be?
See, this is that tricky question that I think everybody has to be careful when they answer it. I'm going to go with the female world just because it's what I do. And I would say probably one of my favorite players of all time was Geraldine Heaney. I had the pleasure of playing with her for years and years, one of the greatest women that's ever played the game, and was a part of a lot of gold-winning teams. And I think probably I'm prone to pick a defense being a goalie, so I'll pick the ones that have bailed me out the most.
In 1999, you were selected to try out for Team Canada, but anxiety got in the way. Can you tell us what happened?
It had kind of started a bit sooner than 99. Leading up to that camp, I had started to feel kind of unwell. And at the time, I wasn't sure what it was. I had gone to my doctor, and I had kind of done every test you could imagine, and unfortunately, none of them came back with any answers for me. And when I got out to the camp that year, I had actually arranged for my parents to come out with me, obviously secretly, because nobody wants mommy and daddy chaperoning them to Team Canada camp. But at the time, I didn't feel well, and I got out to camp that year, and the first day of camp, it went something like I would go on ice for an hour and then go find somewhere to have a breakdown, and I would find a washroom to cry in, and then go do an hour of testing, and then find somewhere else to break down. So by the end of that day, I had kind of reached my limit in terms of what I could handle. So I had told the coaches that I needed to leave the camp that night, that I'd be back in the morning. What they didn't know was that my parents, well, at that point, my father and my mother was due to fly in the next day. We're sitting at a hotel down the street from the campus I was at, and I went down there that night, and knowing now, I mean, anxiety and depression had absolutely taken over already. Then, though, I wasn't sure what it was, and I had a conversation with my father, and I called back home, and I spoke to my mother and a couple of friends, and unfortunately I just had decided I couldn't handle it anymore. So I went back in the next morning to the coaches at 7:30 in the morning and told them I needed to go home, that I wasn't well, that I didn't know what was wrong with me. Unfortunately, the response I got from the coaches that year was, doesn't make it any easier to know that we wanted to take you with us this year and that we wanted you to play with Team Canada this year, which probably just made it one of the harder days of my life, and obviously a memory I'm going to have forever that isn't necessarily my fondest one. But at that point, I couldn't function anymore, so I chose to leave camp that day.
When you first began going through these anxiety issues, you described it with these words: failure, degrading, embarrassment, shame. Why do you think those were the first words that you related to your situation? And do you feel that most people going through the same thing associate it with those terms?
Well, couple of part question here. To begin with, for myself, absolutely, that's what I felt. I felt that for many years. It took me 10 years to kind of come clean about what I was going through and tell people what I had been through, and to a shock to a lot of people, because I had become so good at hiding it for that very reason. It was absolutely degrading and shameful. I mean, I had gone from this elite athlete who had the world kind of there for me. I was going to recognize my dream of playing for Team Canada. I was doing well in school. I had a great job, and within months it had gone to I couldn't leave my apartment. I couldn't be alone. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, and I didn't want anybody to see me like that. I didn't want to have to try to explain it to people who didn't understand, because you can't. They can't see it. I mean, I could be having the worst day of my life and they have absolutely no idea. And for me to have to try to explain that when I'm feeling that unwell, it was too much for me. And sadly, yes, I think it's very common. I think that unfortunately the stigma surrounding mental health is just phenomenal. And I think it's something that absolutely holds people back from getting help and from getting support and getting treatment. And just in speaking with all of the organizations that I've been working with and all of the students, I think that absolutely, I hear it often, is just, I don't want people to know, or I don't know what people will think of me. So sadly, yes, I think it's very common.
In the game of hockey, the goalie sort of becomes the punching bag if a team loses because they are the last line of defense. Do you think that pressure, not just as a goalie, but in sports as a whole, has a negative effect on athletes, or do you think it varies from person to person?
We had to do the goalie thing, eh? I think inevitably, I think I've heard a lot more adjectives to come with the goaltender description, and crazy is one of them. I mean, we're often questioned as to what drives us, and that's fine. I'll take it as unique. I'm good with being unique. And to be quite honest, I think a lot of the skills and the mechanisms that I've learned being a goaltender have probably what's helped me become so successful in coping with my anxiety and my depression. Do I think that the pressure has anything to do with it? I mean, I could sit here for the next 100 years and try to figure out what exactly triggered this. I mean, was it an elite level of athletics? Was it, school? Was it work? Was it a billion other environmental factors? Or was it genetic? Or? I think what I do know is that I don't think it was actually the stress itself of being an athlete. I think that was one of the easier venues for people to see what I was suffering from or what I was afflicted by, because I couldn't hide it there. I couldn't just get on the ice all of the time and pretend everything was fine. So not so much so that it was the pressure of the sport itself, it was just that was one of the places that I couldn't hide. That was one of the places that personally my inability to cope at that time was very evident, because it was out there for everybody to see. It wasn't somewhere where I could be hiding in my apartment and shut the door and not have the world know what I was feeling or what I was going through. Do I think that it was the cause? I would say, it's been as great a part of my life as anything. I'm sure that there are pressures and expectations that I put on myself and that other people put on me that may have played a part, only in the sense of, because I didn't know how to cope with what I was feeling, it just added to the load that I was carrying. So indirectly. And on the flip side, I mean, I've come to realize how incredibly important physical activity is to me, and how incredibly important it is to my mental health and my mental fitness. And I know personally that if I'm not working out, if I'm not being physically active, then my anxiety and my depression are actually worse. So I can't blame that for it. I would say it would be quite the contrary, the sport itself. And it was just kind of overall my ability to function is what became the issue.
In a tough game like hockey, did you ever feel afraid to discuss your anxiety issues with teammates or other people who played the sport for fear that it would make you look weak?
Absolutely. I didn't discuss it. I never let anybody know what was going on. There was always a good line of excuses as to why I wasn't around that day, or any reason except for what was true. and I didn't tell anybody. For the better part of 10 years, I could probably count on two hands how many people knew I was suffering. And the majority of those were family. So it wasn't a discussion to be had. I mean, from every standpoint, one, obviously, again, the shame and the embarrassment that comes with it is just kind of, you guys knew me as this athlete, and all of a sudden I became this very non-functioning 120-pound, 5'11" athlete who couldn't leave bed. And how do you explain that to somebody? How do you have them understand with any... there weren't words for me to share that with them. And on the other side of it as well, I guess it's that expectation of trying to be my best for my teammates. And it doesn't instill a lot of confidence when you've got a goalie who was scared to be out of her apartment at that time. So it's not really something I wanted my teammates to know. I just, hey guys, I'm here for you. I'll stop the puck. I'll do my best. But by the way, it scares me when you guys are on the other end of the ice because I'm alone. And that wasn't something that I was ever willing to kind of put out there until now. So quite honestly, until just this year, really, nobody knew.
Being a hockey player myself, I know that teams are sort of like family. Was there anyone that you wanted to reach out to? Because you said that it was hard and you didn't, I guess, want to, but was there any specific person that you just wanted to tell?
I mean, I've been fortunate, and me not telling anybody wasn't a testament to my thoughts on them as a person. I mean, I've met some incredible people, and I play with some incredible girls, and it's not so much that I ever had a lack of faith in what their reaction or their support would be to me. It was just my inability to come to terms with what I was going through, and and then there is the fear of how will they treat me? How will they react to me? Is it, just going to be, oh, well, Kendra's being dramatic, or, well, just suck it up, get over it. Just stop worrying, because I never thought of that. Specifically, are there people I wanted to tell? I'm not going to pick names. I'm not going to do that to them, because I don't know that there's any point to putting one above the other. There are a few who kind of figured out something was up and over the years have approached me. It just wasn't something I was willing to admit to. So, I mean, looking back now and being in the position that I'm in now, having kind of divulged everything and letting everybody know what I've been going through and what it is I hope to do by sharing my story, absolutely, I wish I had done it sooner. I've had great support and great feedback, and I imagine that only would have helped me along the way. So I wish I had done it sooner, but I guess it happened the way it did for a reason. So it's working out now.
How did you learn to cope with your anxiety issues?
Years of being far too stubborn and ignorant and fighting it all the way. I didn't really accept the diagnosis very well. It wasn't something I was willing to believe I was going to have to deal with my whole life. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what to think of it. In the beginning, when I first came back from Team Canada camp that year, Team Canada actually was very supportive and set me up with a psychologist, and I started seeing her. I wasn't really the most active patient in my recovery. I very quickly did the whole Goodwill Hunting, let's just count the minutes I'm stuck in this office with a shrink and get out of here as soon as I can, because I don't need a shrink. And I was just looking for a cure. I wanted to be fixed. I wanted to be better, and I wanted to get on with my life. I didn't want to deal with this. So I was pretty resistant in the beginning, and then I absolutely crashed. And when I did, I didn't have a choice but to get help. I wouldn't have made it had I not. So I started seeing my psychologist again. I was put on antidepressants, and The combination of the two for me personally. I guess my little disclaimer is I'm not a doctor. This is just what's worked for me. But I think it got me to a point where I was, I don't want to use the word stable because that's pushing it, but I was balanced enough that I started to get stronger. And when I started to get stronger, after a very long process, because again, I was very resistant to it. I had kind of done the whole, okay, fine, I'll take my pill, I'll see my shrink, but I don't want anybody to know about this, so I'm still going to hide from it. And so then I about after 5-6 years, I started to realize, okay, there's got to be something better. There's got to be a better way to do this. So then I started kind of reading into it, and heaven forbid working out helps, and eating healthy helps. Apparently 10 cups of coffee a day for somebody with anxiety doesn't help. So I started to make some, changes in just my daily life, and then got into yoga and started seeing a naturopath as well. I've kind of invested in every form of therapy at this point, which is what works for me. I have a really great support system and foundation now. So I just kind of make sure that I'm taking care of myself now. And from a psychology perspective, from a physical perspective, from every angle, I try to make sure that I am staying strong. And I think from that I've developed coping skills that have just kind of I've learned how to apply it to every situation now. So when things come, they don't shock me so much anymore. It's kind of like, okay, I can place this, I know what this is, and I get through it. So it's been a long process, but I've kind of got, just an army on my side now, so it works great.
Do you feel that you have an obligation as a public figure to get your story out there and to help people who might be going through the same issues as you?
Personally obligated, yes. That's the person I am, though. I looked for my reason as to why this happened for a long time, and I could do that, poor me, sob story and pity and feel bad for myself and beat myself up over it and, be angry and all of these things. And in this process of kind of trying to figure out why it happened, what I did realize is, maybe it did happen so I could help other people. Maybe it did happen because I am somebody who has successfully learned how to cope with it and deal with it and live with it very happily and very productively. And so maybe that, with the combination of my sports, kind of created this platform for me to say, hey, you know what? I've been there too. It's not this selective, ailment that just kind of picks people who have horrible things that happen to them, or picks people who are, down and out, or picks people at the top of their game. I mean, it takes everybody. And, you look at the stats with mental health, and 1 in 4 kids and 1 in 4 adults are dealing with this. I mean, so personally, I guess my obligation is self-expectation. I absolutely feel that 10 years ago, I would have liked to have been offered hope. I would have liked to have realized that I could have been better and things could have been great, because I wouldn't have believed it then. So I guess I've taken it upon myself now to share that perspective and share that story. And I mean, if it helps anybody, that's fantastic. I mean, if nothing else, it's at least contributing to a conversation that hopefully will start to change the way people see it, and to change the stigma, and to make it acceptable for people to get support and find help and understand where they can get that, and that it's not, the sentence I believed it was. So, do I think everybody's obligated to do so? No. I mean, it's ironic. It's very odd for somebody with an anxiety disorder to feel comfortable grabbing a mic and standing up in front of a room full of people. And I mean, I have a good chuckle at it every time I do it, because it's kind of hypocritical almost. I mean, who wants to have panic attacks and stand in front of 1,000 kids staring at you? It's kind of a very big contradiction. So it's something that I'm okay with. I mean, I've had some great moments standing up on stage where I thought, what am I doing? I mean, I'm just going to have a panic attack right here. So this is just crazy. But I think that's part of the honesty of what I have to offer is, this is something I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. But I don't know that it's something that everybody should feel they have to do. I don't know that it would really benefit some people. Some people, it might just not be their path in life, but I guess I've taken it upon myself, yes.
What do you think coaches and sports organizations are doing and can do better to support athletes that are dealing with mental health issues?
I think that this is something that we're kind of just starting to scratch the surface of. This is becoming a conversation people are having. This is becoming something that people are starting to recognize. I mean, very, very, very tragically and sadly, Darren Richardson last year, who took her own life, it kind of opened the eyes of the women's hockey world, just directly related there. I know she was part of the Ontario Women's Hockey Association, and right away, the Ontario Women's Hockey Association, started structuring a committee to kind of deal with this on a more widespread basis. And I know they had been involved previously. And so many great organizations. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many incredible people on this journey now, and it's just kind of, everybody's kind of got the right idea and the right perspective, and we're starting to move in the right direction in terms of making sure people are educated, making sure that support's available. It's not something that's easy to deal with. I don't know that we're necessarily self-taught how to deal with when somebody comes to you and says, I want to end my life, or I can't handle this. And so I think having, other avenues of training or support for those coaches and for those organizations to kind of, learn how to deal with it, learn how to have that conversation, learn how to be a support and how to react in a positive way. And I know that there's great organizations out there that are starting to instill these practices. And I think that, it's not present enough yet. I guess for me, my personal belief, when you're dealing with kids especially, teachers, coaches, all of them, you have to know you didn't sign up for a 9-to-5 job. You're dealing with helping kids become, who they're going to be. And in that, I think, comes a responsibility of supporting them and being an outlet to them. So I think that, from a coaching perspective, to take it on to educate yourself and to understand better how you can be proactive and have these conversations and perhaps, proactively kind of get involved with the overall, mental wellness of your players or your students or it goes through every spectrum, your coworkers, your friends, your family. And I think that we're starting to see it, but I think it's, something that needs to go viral. We need people to understand that these conversations are okay and they need to be had.
If you could go back in time with what you know now and tell your younger self who is just starting to experience anxiety, what would you tell yourself?
There's hope. I'm big on the hope thing now. 10 years ago, I was down and out. I didn't see tomorrow. I didn't see how I was going to be okay. I didn't know where I was going to end up. I spent so many years with this suffering, not having the knowledge, not having the wherewithal to seek more help and to make it better for myself, and allow people to help, allow people to be a support to me. And it took a lot. I dropped out of school. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything for the longest time. I'm very, very fortunate that I've had a great support system, financially, especially. It's not an easy load to bear when you can't work and you can't go to school and you're trying to take care of yourself. And, the majority of treatment for mental health isn't covered. So it's, it's a heck of a cost to endure. So, I just tell somebody there's hope. There's absolutely hope. I couldn't be happier with where I am right now. And I've even gone as far to answer the question, if I could turn back time and share this then and develop these coping skills then, and go and play for Team Canada and represent my country, would I take that path instead? And I don't think I would at this point. I mean, I love hockey and I love everything it's given me. But my hockey career also, it would have had a shelf life. And now I'm in this position where I've learned so much about myself and I've met so many incredible people because of the journey I've been on. And hopefully, I mean, I can be a part of something that, it might stop somebody else from losing their dream. It might help somebody else to seek out the help or find the support they need before, heaven forbid, lose their dream, but lose their life. I mean, it's just such a greater purpose that I have found for myself. So, I mean, ultimately, it all comes back to hope. It doesn't have to be what it was 10 years ago. I didn't have to suffer as long as I did. It didn't have to get as bad as it did. And everything that was my inability to talk, my desire not to talk, how embarrassing it did feel, the shame that came with it, we can dissipate that. We can eliminate that by having people understand this is an illness and this is something that people actually need to get help with and get treatment for, whatever form that comes in. And I think that, we just need to keep talking about it.
Thank you for talking to Mind Your Mind.